Hi everybody, my name's Peter Laws and I am an author of the crime fiction series featuring the character Matt Hunter, and I'm delighted to be taking part in the UK Crime Book Club virtual festival. Now, these books that I write featuring Matt Hunter follow his life as an ex-church minister, now turned atheist college professor who helps the police solve religiously motivated crime. And in the books, he is involved in all sorts of strange cases, which are both disturbing, scary, spooky, amusing sometimes. There's humor within the books, but also it can be pretty intense and spooky at times. Now, the latest book, the fourth book in the series, just came out a few months ago, called Purged, which explores a surprising growth in demonic or claims of demonic possession these days. There's a big demand for exorcism in churches. In fact, some churches are struggling to keep up. But I thought I would read to you a very brief passage from the first in this series, which is the book called Purged. And this has Matt on the trail of a Christian serial killer who believes the kindest thing to do is to take people and baptize them and then murder them immediately afterwards, so they would be fast-tracked to heaven and they won't lose their faith. In a sense, he thinks he's doing a nice thing for the world, but of course it's psychotic and crazy, and Matt Hunter comes in to help out. I'm going to read to you a very brief section just to give you a flavor of Matt. This is the beginning from the beginning of the book. He has just had a very strange experience in a London noodle bar where he's had to try and talk down somebody from a hostage situation, and he's been asked to wear his dog collar that he hasn't worn for years because he's turned against all of that stuff, but he's asked by the police to use it to talk down this person. There's reasons why. And afterwards, he's driving home after this quite traumatic experience, and he's thinking about this dog collar that he's had to wear. Even though he'd torn that clerical collar off, he could still feel it pressing around his neck. Those things often used to do that when he wore them professionally. He'd take it off at night for a shower and he still felt it gripping. You know, like when you wear a hat for a long time and you feel like it's still there. A phantom friggin' limb, that's what it was like. And he felt pretty stupid, but even now he had to check in the rearview mirror just to make sure that he had really dragged it off. Dog collar. Whoever thought that name up had an excellent grasp of irony. There was a time in his life when he'd worn one constantly. Back in his early 20s, when he'd been the obedient, house-trained minister of Bewley Hill Independent Evangelical Church, a long-winded name for a long-winded church. And he shuddered in the car at the thought of it. He literally shuddered. You know, in the same way Terry Waite probably freaked out if he ever accidentally woke up in some deep ditch of the night and thought he was back in his hole. Matt touched his fingertips to his bare neck one more time and smiled. There's nothing there. There's no creepy cross hanging from the rearview mirror like he used to have. No little handheld Eucharist box stuffed in his glove box so he could take communion to shut-ins, with bite-sized bread and a tiny bottle of wine for pensioners who like their gluten-free Jesus to go. He pushed the car into gear as the lights turned green. As good a symbol as any that he really was free and life was good. And while his writing and speaking and teaching at the university these days showed that religion was in a sense still his bread and butter, there was now a crucial difference. He didn't have to actually eat that bread. Sniff it? Yeah, why not? Prod it a bit like an interesting mushroom growing on a tree? Fine, but consume it. Because that stuff did things to people. Bad things. The books explore this sort of idea of how religion, and particularly Christianity or evangelical Christianity, can be quite disturbing and scary to many people today. Some people find this ironic because I am actually a church minister myself, and so people can say, why do your books have such negative characters that are from faith? But for me, I can still remember what it was like when I was growing up, and I had nothing to do with church, and I just found religion really quite scary. And today there are very scary religious people out there, and there are people who kill in the name of God. And so those are the types of stories that Matt Hunter explores. And so the first book is Purged. The second book is Unleashed, which explores a strange poltergeist case, or a supposed poltergeist case in South London. Severed is where Matt has a clash with a strange pseudo-Christian cult. And Possessed, like I've mentioned before, explores this growth in possession. By the way, I also wrote this book here called The Frighteners, Why We Love Monsters, Ghosts, Death and Gore. And that was a crazy book in which I travelled around in Transylvania, Rome and Britain, trying to understand and defend why people have a morbid streak. I have a morbid streak, I always have. Long before I ever went to church, I liked scary stuff, and maybe you do too. And that book was supposed to explore the reasons why it's perfectly natural indeed for you guys who are part of the Crime Book Club, it is perfectly normal and natural to be fascinated with death and murder and scary stuff, and it doesn't make you a weird person for liking it. Well, thank you for listening to me. If you want to check out my stuff, you can find them in bookshops, or when we're in lockdown now, so you can get them online in ebook, audiobook, paperback, and you can also find me on Twitter at RevPeterLaws or peterlaws.co.uk. Thanks for listening, and have a great festival.